Welcome back to Show and Teller. I'm Rabbi Teller, and it is so amazing to be here today with a very special guest. And I have to say, here at Show and Teller, I pride myself on bringing in people who have a very interesting story, somebody who has wisdom, somebody who can contribute to society, somebody who is contributing to society. And I want to not just always be in the box. I want to basically bring in people who there's some diversity, there's something different, there's something relevant. So when I ended up meeting this person, who I will introduce in 1 second, I thought, this is fantastic, this is perfect, this is amazing, and I feel that our audience will glean so much from our guest speaker. So without further ado, I have Mrs. Gila Block, who is a native of Los Angeles, California, spent some time in New York, and is now back here in Los Angeles. And without further ado, I'm going to have Gila introduce herself, and then I'm going to get going, and we're going to go with a great episode.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be able to join Show and Teller. I am, as you said, a native of Los Angeles. I have a master's in applied behavioral analysis and used to work in the autism space, but during my initial couple years in that field, my husband and I got diagnosed with infertility, and through that came the organization Yesh Tikva, where I now work, and I'm in the executive
You say it
director.
one more time?
Yesh Tikva.
Which means what?
There is hope.
There is hope.
And I'm now the co-founder and executive director of the organization, and I quit my job as a behavior therapist.
So you're doing Yesh Tikva full-time?
Full-time, and then some.
Tell us a little bit about the organization. Is it just in Los Angeles? Is it nationwide? Who do you service?
So Yesh Tikva is a national organization. We were actually founded when we were on the East Coast, but we serve Jewish people across the U.S. As well as across the world at this point. And our goal is to provide emotional help and support to those facing a fertility struggle, as well as their family and friends, so that they're capable of showing up at such a hard time. What we've learned is that as much as we want to be there and hold the hands of those who are struggling with infertility, there's only so much that we can do on a daily basis. But if we can support their loved ones and give them the tools to show up, then all of a sudden we're showing up for these individuals more frequently.
Okay. I hope you don't mind. Yeah. I mean, we're here and it's a captive audience. May I ask personally, so you said you and your husband were trying to have children. What was the process, or what was happening, and what then spawned coming up with an organization like Yesh Tikva from your personal story?
So my husband and I were married for a little over a year, and we were not successful in having children. So someone recommended going in to see what is called a reproductive endocrinologist, a fertility specialist, to start a workup. And at the beginning, we were somewhat in denial because infertility wasn't really something that people really spoke about, and it was something that happened to other people, not to us. And so it took us a little bit of time to come to terms with it, but we went through this process, got what is called an unexplained diagnosis, which means that science really doesn't know what's wrong, but it's been 12 months of trying to conceive, and automatically 12 months when you're under 35, it's a fertility diagnosis, whether you walk through that doctor's office or not.
Diagnosis, makes it sound to me like there's something wrong.
Yeah. It's a medical diagnosis. There is something wrong with your reproductive system. Sometimes we have a diagnosis and understand what's wrong, what's preventing one from getting pregnant, and there is 30% of diagnoses which are called unexplained infertility, in which science knows something is wrong. They just don't yet have the science to tell you what is causing your fertility struggles. But infertility is 100% a medical diagnosis.
So when you heard this, may I ask, how old were you at the time when this happened?
I was really young. We got married when we were 22. We were diagnosed at 23 and a half.
Now, when you heard this, what the doctor told you, did you immediately say, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with me? Oh my gosh, my life is over. What was going through your head when you heard the doctor say this to you?
That's a good question. It's been a long time. I was diagnosed over nearly 14 years ago. It didn't feel real. It's almost like, the Charlie Brown comic in which the teacher's yelling at him and he just sees blah, 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 blah. That is kind of what it feels like, because the doctor's throwing all this jargon at you, and it's an out-of-body experience. Like, this can't be happening to me. I'm broken, something's wrong with me. And it just felt, for me at the time at least, I was not empowered with understanding or knowledge of what infertility was yet. It really wasn't something that people were speaking about.
It was taboo?
100%. And not just from the sense of the shamefulness of the taboo, but also in the sense of it wasn't yet something that we were being educated on from a medical space. We didn't learn about it in biology class. We were taught to try not to get pregnant, that if you blink, you'd get pregnant. And here, the complete opposite was happening. Instead of trying not to get pregnant, I was trying to get pregnant and couldn't. Yet everyone was meant to just get off birth control and be pregnant 5 seconds later. And no one had yet spoken about this reality that at the time when I was diagnosed, it was 1 in 8 couples were diagnosed with a fertility journey. Today, as of last year, it's 1 in 6 couples according to the World Health Organization, and 1 in 5 according to the CDC. Are being diagnosed each year with infertility. So it really is such a common diagnosis, yet at the time no one was really speaking about it. I can't say the same for today. Today we really do talk about it, whether it is on TV, in social media, and in conversation, in communal experiences. That landscape has changed tremendously in the last 15 years. Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah, 100%.
So going back to you, now you heard this information, you said, am I broken? What's wrong with me? Yeah. What were your next steps in now going on with your life? What did you have to do now? How did you become more empowered? How did you educate yourself? What were the next immediate steps that you took?
So the next immediate steps were not becoming empowered and educated. That was 3 years down the road. The next immediate step was denial for me, and for us, for my husband and I. And it took us a little bit of time, but we began the treatment process. So depending on what a person's diagnosis is, there are 2 general types of treatment options available in the fertility space. Aside from surgery when needed for certain diagnoses, there's something called an IUI, intrauterine insemination, and something called IVF, which is in vitro fertilization.
Can you explain that for those who don't know what that is?
Yeah, totally. So IUI is what's usually referred to or thought of as the first line of treatment for infertility. IUI is when a sperm sample is either collected from the partner or donor used. It is cleaned and then using a special device called I forgot what it's called.
It's okay. Well, maybe it's like a turkey baster, looks like a turkey baster,
but not actually. Yes,
but let's just for our viewership, maybe looks like a turkey baster. Don't know the official name, but listen, this is a very good way of going about this. Yes. So
yes, they insert through a tube.
Yes.
They pass your cervix.
Yes.
So if the issue is cervical mucus related, and they allow it to bypass that and get it closer to your fallopian tubes, so that it could meet the egg, and ideally create an embryo that then implants and creates a pregnancy. Statistically speaking, there's about 5 to 15% chance that IUI will be a successful pregnancy. And if you think about it in general, what statistics show is that 20% of the population will get pregnant within 12 months of trying. Each month you have about a 20 to 30% chance of getting pregnant naturally that first year, or without intervention. All pregnancy is natural, but not needing intervention, individuals who are not diagnosed within the first 1 to 12 months of trying, and taking up to 12 months is very normal for individuals under the age of 35. Once one hits 35 and older, it's 6 months of trying, because age does play a factor into a fertility journey.
I want to get back to this story, but maybe
Yes.
I'll be heading us off on a big tangent, so I do apologize
Yes.
right now if that might be the case.
Yeah.
I meet with a lot of
Yeah.
single people and people who they're not yet married,
Yeah.
and they're in the process of dating for marriage, and many people will say, you know what, Rabbi, I'm not going to date somebody over the age of 35 because I want to have a family and I want to have kids. And I've heard that if I date somebody over the age of 35, I'm not going to be able to have a child with this person. And a lot of the times my mouth just drops and I say, okay, are you a doctor? Do you know what you're talking about? And do you have any basis to say what you're saying? So I feel like I have somebody who knows a little bit more about this topic than I would. If somebody were to say, you know, they can't have a child after the age of 35, what would you tell them, or what is the statistics behind it?
I think that firstly I would back up what you just said. At the end of the day, we're not God, we're not doctors. We don't know who will and who won't have children. You could be 25 and not have a child, and you could be 35 and get pregnant easily. Does age play a factor into one's ability to have children? Science says yes, because what starts to happen is that we're born with all of our eggs in our body, women. And therefore, each cycle of our period and each month, we lose those eggs until that finite number is gone and we hit menopause. And again, I'm not a doctor, so look this up, check me out, make sure I'm sharing this correctly. But from my understanding of all this, so over 35 is when we see the beginning of the drastic drop in fertility as we head towards 45 and 50 of where menopause, perimenopause, and then menopause hits. So part of also what impacts it is how we care for our bodies. Wear and tear on our body is wear and tear on the quality of our eggs. So as we get older, the quality of our eggs begin to deteriorate. That doesn't mean that everyone over 35 won't have a child.
Meaning, from what I'm understanding, and I could be very wrong from what I'm understanding, is that the actual biology of the egg can change as somebody gets older.
Exactly. From environmental causes, from what we do.
Which might inhibit then the gestation of when the sperm hits the egg. It might not take, or it's not going to happen.
Or genetic abnormalities.
Okay.
Yeah. That being said, that doesn't mean that every woman over 35 can't have a child and will need fertility treatment, and it also doesn't mean that every woman under 35 will. 1 in 6 is the statistics for individuals under 35. That means that even dating someone under 35, you're not guaranteed anything, and therefore dating someone over 35 doesn't mean you're guaranteed not to have. If they're the right person, far be it from me to say do or don't, but I would assume that would be a consideration one might want to have, is that there are reproductive health interventions that are available to allow one to grow a family before 35 and after 35.
Okay. And I think since we're on this topic, and again, I sideswiped you on your story, but we'll get back to your story. But since we're on this topic, and again, you're not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor.
You're not a doctor.
Not a doctor.
What does it because people are not having children and they're in their mid-30s, is there a protocol that women should do, or in order to ensure that they're going to have a child at a later stage in life? Is there something that they should do? Or again, not a doctor, but not a doctor, but I'm just maybe putting
Yeah.
it out there? Is there something that women should be doing?
So there, to the best of my knowledge, there's no science that says if you do X, then Y will happen. Are there options and choices that people can make? Could one, after speaking and consulting with a doctor, decide that fertility preservation might be an option for them?
Fertility preservation means freezing their eggs?
Exactly. That freezing, it freezes the fertility age of your eggs at the age that it was frozen at.
So if somebody takes out their eggs or freezes their eggs at age 33, their
they have
eggs...
33-year-old eggs, even if they create embryos and transfer them later on in life.
Got it.
Something just to keep in mind is that just jumping in and saying that egg freezing is the solution, is that you should, isn't so simple. It is not an option for everyone. Not everyone is emotionally able to do it, financially able to do it, nor is it a guarantee that one who does it will have a child from those eggs. There are no promises in any of this, and it really is an eyes wide open choice someone needs to make, in which they become educated on what that choice is, sit with a doctor or two, get consultations, find out how many cycles, how many eggs they need to freeze to even guarantee them one pregnancy. Because at every stage of the fertility process of IVF, there is a decline in the number of eggs that become embryos, embryos that become viable, and then viable embryos that are healthy, and then that are genetically, that do not have genetic abnormalities, and then from that to a embryo transferring and becoming a pregnancy, and even from there to becoming a live birth. And so saying I froze 5, 10, 15 eggs doesn't necessarily mean I will have 5, 10, 15 embryos that will then become children. It's
because an embryo is the combination of the sperm and the egg.
Correct. And the embryo...
And then it has to take in the body.
They transfer it, and then the next step is that your body needs to now receive it, and it needs to implant. And even once it implants, it needs to carry through to a live birth. And 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in a loss. And not every transfer ends in a pregnancy. So statistically speaking, just knowing what your choices are and making that choice with eyes wide open.
Okay.
Which for a lot of people, it's a wonderful choice. And for those who don't make that choice, it doesn't mean that they're choosing not to have children. And it's something I think that at the beginning, when we first started learning about egg freezing, it was a you must, as opposed to an understanding of what is egg freezing. What is that financial choice I'm making? What is that realistic choice I'm making? Is my 1 cycle at 36 going to guarantee me a child or not? And just really having those conversations and knowing. But if one does choose to freeze their eggs, the earlier you freeze it, the earlier you're preserving your fertility, and you're creating that insurance of a younger, more healthy, hopefully, egg.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I do appreciate that very much.
And again, not a doctor.
Not a doctor. We've set
Disclaimer.
that. We've set that straight. Going back to your story.
Yeah.
So where we left off in your story is that I said, did you go into research and figuring this out right away, or you said no, we were actually in denial at that point? So.
And victim mode. And so we began the process of IUIs, of the intrauterine insemination. We did a few failed cycles of IUIs. We were at a clinic that we were like one of hundreds of probably thousands of people who came in each year to that clinic. We'd show up at 5 o'clock in the morning to be seen at 6:30, but you wanted to be seen at 6:30, not at 7:30, because you had to get to work. And I was living in New York City at the time, so I'd take the subway down to the doctor's office, get in at 5 o'clock.
And you're 22 years old, 23.
At that point, probably 24.
Okay. Still relatively young.
Still relatively young.
Mom and dad are not anywhere around.
No, but also like this is your sex life. Like you don't want your mom and dad involved.
True.
Yeah. This is and
because there's probably a sense of like, okay, like this is private, and
Yeah.
maybe some shame at this point, and I don't want to be talking to my parents about.
Yeah. And not even shame, privacy. I think that's something that we speak a lot about in this space, is that there's a difference between secrecy and privacy. Secrecy is where I can't tell you because I'm ashamed. Privacy is setting boundaries. And this is a part of your life that's private. Does that mean that you're not going to share some of it? Of course. And for some people, the comfort and the boundary that they set is the ability to share all of it. For other people, it's setting a deeper boundary in which this is so deeply connected to my sex life, even though I've now invited a doctor and a lab technician and a ton of nurses.
To ask you a bunch of questions.
And to poke and prod and to make the embryo before it gets transferred. And my husband wasn't even in the room when my daughter was transferred. It was a doctor and a bunch of nurses and an anesthesiologist. So it really looks a lot different than the pop open a wine bottle and make a baby experience that most people hope for. But we're not even there in this
we're not
journey.
even there. But going back to that,
Yeah.
you know, but you trade those things to have a child.
100%. And
And that's what you're
$70,000.
willing to sacrifice to be like,
Yeah.
okay, I this is maybe a sense of my decency is being given up right now, that I have to go through this, but the pain of enduring this process, maybe I'm willing to endure it to have the finished product, in this case, a child.
Yeah. But you don't go into it knowing you're going to get the finished product. You go into it with the hope that you might. And not everyone walks out with that finished product, but we all go in with the hope that we will. And that's what allows you to keep going, is that it's the opportunity to hope that maybe it will work.
Okay, so now I'm hearing it. Yesh Tikva, there is hope. So
But our hope isn't the hope that you will have a child. Our hope is the hope that I will be able to get through this journey, that there's a community that will hold me, that will help me face another day. Because to
feel decency, to feel like a mensch, to feel like I'm human.
Yeah.
Going through this process where I can feel very alone, very isolated.
Exactly.
Nobody's like me.
Yeah.
I need essentially what your community is offering.
Yeah.
A community.
100%.
To know that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And that there's others who have experienced this, who are experiencing this, and who can give me the tools necessary to wake up in the morning and go on with my life.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that sometimes we think about it like the statistics are 1 in 6. A lot of times we feel like the 1, and it's that taking that step back and remembering that 1 in 6 is a large part of our population. And it's not just me, the 1, but I'm part of a larger 1 in 6.
So you're meeting the other ones.
Yes, exactly. And as they say in this community, it is not the community that you would choose to join, but it's the best one to be in.
Okay. So going back, you went through all this medical stuff, and then at what point did this spawn, using the word spawn, this idea of Yesh Tikva, did it just say, I'm going to start an organization, or what needed to happen for you to come up with this?
So it was 3 years of treatment. We had already transitioned into IVF at that point. We had done what is called a retrieval process, which is when it's that piece of the egg freezing where they take out the eggs, and then in when it's not just egg freezing and it's IVF is when the egg meets a sperm and embryos are created. In
a test tube? In a petri dish. In a petri dish.
Yeah.
Biology class.
Biology class, except we don't learn about this in biology.
No, we don't.
We should, but we don't. We learn about Punnett squares. It's one of my gripes.
Yes.
Is that we actually
recessive and dominant.
Exactly. So had I learned about this in biology class, it wouldn't have been such a denial and such a shock when I got diagnosed. But we don't actually yet learn about this in biology class.
So we're going to get there. That we're going to take the petri dish to maybe a Jewish high school, and say, hey, this is so-and-so and so-and-so's.
It's cryopreserved, so you're not going to see it.
Do you know any good principles that you can...
show a petri dish, too.
Yes.
No. Not yet, but we're going to get there without the petri dishes.
Okay.
But conceptually, it is not yet something that is taught really in any form of biology until you hit medical school and are learning really about your reproductive health through anatomy. But we lost all of our embryos in a single defrost. We did. At the time, it was very common to do what they call fresh transfers, which means you do a retrieval. Your eggs and sperm sit in a lab, becoming that embryo that grows from initial fertilization into...
Does that process take a while?
5 to 6 days.
Okay.
Ideally, most viable embryos are transferred on it. It's a day 5 or 6 transfer, up to 7 days. usually they'll keep an embryo to see if it will grow into a healthy embryo. After that, usually the embryo, at that point, you've gone past. But at the time, day 3 transfers were still slightly a thing, but day 6 is five or six were the most common. Now most embryos are frozen before a transfer is done, and if something called an FET, a frozen embryo transfer, is generally the way that one has a transfer with an embryo. But at the time, fresh transfers were still being done, and so we did a fresh transfer, which ended in what is called a failed cycle. And if you think of like all this language, it's so blaming, like you failed, your body failed, it failed you. So we had a failed cycle, and the rest of our embryos were frozen on that same day. So 2 were transferred, the rest are frozen, and we came back. We have the WTF happened here conversation with your doctor and like what's next, and so we decided to do what is called a frozen embryo transfer a month and a half later. So came back, and my doctor happened not to be in town, and his partner was doing the transfer, and we got there. We were very ready, very excited. Like in our minds at that point, I wasn't yet well educated. Like IVF, like this is what you do. You have a baby when you do IVF. So like if this doesn't work, I'm never having a baby, was how I felt. But like I was also so hopeful. Like of course this is going to work. And right before we were meant to have the transfer, I got called back by the doctor, and she told me that all of our embryos except for 2.5 had thawed and arrested. And arrested means like they died. They stopped.
And is that something that was like something that they did wrong, or that's just like that happens?
So no, it doesn't happen very often. It would be normal if it happened to maybe 1 of the embryos. For it to happen to all of our embryos except for the last 2 is not very common. So it was, before we even did this transfer, it was this like, and minutes before they did the transfer, it was like our world came falling down on us. What we thought we had frozen of our family now came down to 2 embryos that they said weren't even in great condition anymore. So the probability of even having 1 pregnancy out of this was already, before I even went into having the transfer, like all hope felt like it was drained. And we still went through and we did the transfer because my body was primed. We paid for it. We were ready. The cycle failed. And that's when I hit my true rock bottom. Because at that point, my doctor didn't call to have the WTF conversation. That's what they call this. Post-failed cycle experience. And almost like ghosted me because I don't even know. And so I fell into my own self and into this sense of my body failed me. I'll never be able to have a child. Even my embryos can't survive what most should be able to survive. There's something wrong with the egg quality. And it took about a year. And during that year,
so you were in a state of sorrow.
Yeah.
And just.
I probably was clinically depressed, just not diagnosed.
And now to go on with a day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And be married.
Yeah.
And
live
I
in the heights.
I imagine again, now privacy, but
Yeah.
I imagine this was probably very challenging on your relationship.
Oh, 100%. And we joke about it. Like, we're like, if we could survive that, we could survive anything, because it's a miracle that we're still together. 15
After
years.
that.
Yeah, we've been married now for 15 years in
Kananahara.
August. Yeah, thank God. But like, joking, not joking, like, it is a miracle that we survived. We shouldn't have been able to survive this journey. I folded into myself. I was a shell of a human during that year. I pulled away from most relationships. I went to work and then I Netflixed and chilled for the rest of my life. Vegged completely. I binged every Netflix show available at the time. And that was my life. Literally got up, went to work, came home, sat in front of the TV, and day after day. And all while around us, everyone else was having their families. And it seemed that we genuinely were we lived in a young community of married couples, so hyper focused on that stage of life, as opposed to like in LA where you kind of have like this mix of ages. It was really couples in their early 20s, all together, married, having kid after kid after kid. So constantly getting these announcements of everyone else having their children, and not so much, no conversation at all of people who weren't. So it was, everyone had babies, and then there was us. Yeah.
And when you heard of a friend having a child, would like you just say Mazel Tov, like you like Mazel Tov, and then there's a big WTF, like, and it's just like like
yeah.
I mean, you want to feel happy, but at the same
100%.
time, this is your person. You want to feel happy, but at the same time, you're probably thinking like, probably talking to God.
Yeah.
We're going to get a little religious right now.
Okay.
Talking to God and saying, you're a religious woman. You practice Judaism. You're keeping mitzvot, and you say to yourself, wait a minute, God, if you love me, why aren't you helping me?
Yeah.
Where's my joy? Where's my blessing? Where's my gift? Where's my matana?
What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong?
Yeah.
So I imagine, again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how did you feel about God at this stage of life?
I struggled a lot.
Did you want to throw in the towel at some point?
No, I don't know, but I struggled. I struggled with the why. And it's hard because like God's not going to tell you why, like that you find out after 120. But it's hard as a human not to struggle with the why, like why me? Why this? What makes them better than me that they're able to just have children and I can't?
So you struggled with this for a year.
Yeah.
At what point, and what was the catalyst that you woke up? Was it a complete 180 where you said, you know what? This has been a very, 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 very hard year.
Mm-hmm.
I need to do something different, or I need to recover, or I need to get out of this. I need to figure out a way to change my life because, again, I'm putting in words. I'm hopeless right now. I've completely become a shell of myself. What was that turning point for you that said, okay, tomorrow's a different day, or today's a different day, and I got to do something different?
That's a good question. I don't remember the exact moment that spurred it, but at some point I realized that I needed community, and I started searching for it, and I couldn't find it. And so I reached out to a psychologist that I knew, and was then connected to a few women who either worked in this space or had experienced infertility themselves, and just this idea started to percolate of if these people that we're serving, and for me, myself going through it, need this support and it doesn't exist, what can we do to make sure that it does? And so we moved actually in the middle of all this from Manhattan to Queens. And so I reached out to our new rabbi and I said, listen, I'm going through infertility. There have to be other women in the community who are. Is there anyone you could connect me with? And he connected me with two other women. And then one of the mental health professional that the original mental health professional connected me to came to my house, and she helped facilitate what essentially became Yesh Tikva's first support group. And from there, this idea of if we need it and nothing exists, and it was so profoundly helpful to me and to the two women who were with me.
Who were experiencing
who
similar...
were also experiencing infertility. What if we can help more people? And so I was connected to a woman named Ellie Solomon, who at that point already had her 4 miracle babies, but had each one through incredible fertility journeys, and got her on board, and together we decided to found Yesh Tikva with these other professionals as well who were working in the fertility community, supporting individuals in this space. We had an acupuncturist, the social worker, and a yoetzet halacha, and we all just came together and started to plan out what would it look like to make Yesh Tikva something that supported other people, and
came up with a business strategy and plan, and
pretty much, and with a bunch of volunteers.
Started a 501c3.
Yeah, a lot of pro bono hours from different law firms, including my husband's uncle is an attorney at a big law firm in New York. He got us pro bono hours from some associates in his firm, and they filed the 501. They created bylaws for us and helped us file our 501c3. And a friend of his was a web designer, and so he designed this awesome web page for us, helped us make a logo, and all of a sudden we went from dream to like
from you
January
being you working with special needs
yeah.
to saying, okay, I am now the CEO, or
Oh no, that doesn't come for another few years.
Okay.
Just to I am volunteering on the side to make sure that no one struggles the way I did. And so we launched in January 2015, our website. We incorporated it in April of 2015 and became a 501c3 in May of 2015. And it's been 10 years. In 2018, at the end of 2018, I quit my job. And that's when I took on.
At what point did you say, okay, this is now a full-time gig, this is my life, I'm going to quit my job, and this is...
So that was in 2018 after I had my second baby.
What?
We're jumping.
We're jumping. So you pushed, but the organization was just growing, and you just said, okay, I need to be focused on this full-time. What was the...
So it was a funding issue, and Rabbi Ari Siegel at Shalhevet had a vision and said, I will give you a grant through Shalhevet for 2 years. And he gave us office space in the school and said, if you could get this off the ground, he's got this incredible business mind. And he said, I see a vision for this. I see what you're doing. You have no staff, so I can't like pay for your entire staff, but I'll give you 2 years of an incubator to get that going.
And I want to see this grow.
Yeah, and because of that.
So in that 2 years,
in that 2 years, we created the business plan and the fundraising model, and started.
So how many people are working for you now, or working for the organization?
We have 2 full-time staff, 3 part-time staff, and 5 independent contractors. Yeah. Thank God. Yeah.
How big is the budget?
Our budget this year is projected at $450,000.
That's all total.
Yeah.
And
up from last year's $300,000.
And what is the day-to-day of the organization, or what are the programs that you offer for your constituency? Like what is happening nationwide throughout that makes you guys who Yesh Tikva is?
So there are 2 arms of what we do. We started off just with the emotional support piece, and that was through support groups, and our flagship program called Fertility Friends, in which we pair individuals on the other end of their journey that we train as mentors, are in active listening, to mentor individuals who are currently on their fertility journey, and we call it mentors and fertility friends, is how we differentiate the 2 categories. And we have monthly support groups in different areas, up to 7 different groups each month, that because infertility is so unique, and it's not the same diagnosis for everyone, and the pathways that people choose to grow their families are different. We have different groups to serve those different needs. So we have what's called a primary infertility support, which is individuals just starting off on their journey, secondary infertility support, which is individuals who already have children and are now struggling to have a second or more children. We have a group for those who are contemplating surrogacy as the path forward for growing their family, those who are using donor conception, those who are pursuing adoption, and then we have groups for those parenting post these different modalities of growing their families.
Incredible.
Yeah, and then the other arm of our work is the education. What we learned is that even within education, we have two pieces to the educational experience, is that there's only so much we could do. We can't be there every moment of every day, but if we can provide family and friends with the tools and understanding of what it means, what is infertility? What does it mean emotionally for my loved one to be going through it? And what practically can I do? And obviously it's not a one-size-fits-all. Different people need different things, and there's a huge part of seichel, of understanding of who is in front of me, to how I implement these tools that I'm given. But giving these tools, these guidelines of how to show up, as well as for clergy and communal leaders and friends, just understanding what we can do in ritual spaces to yes, we are a Jewish community that revolves around the family unit. And there are so many Jews in our community who don't have that family unit. What can we do to both support those who have it and those who are longing for it? And then the other piece is reproductive health education, because the more you know, the more empowered you become as a consumer, and this is your body, and this is your reproductive health. And if you don't understand it, then how are you the empowered consumer who walks through the door at the doctor's office to get the care that you need? And so that's where our education around reproductive health stems.
Is there any other organization like yours, or are you guys the only one in the Jewish space?
We are the only one in the Jewish space focusing on reproductive health education, but there are other organizations in the Jewish space who do offer support at different stages, financially, and other pieces halachically, with supervision around infertility.
Halachically means lawfully.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I've asked you a lot of questions. I feel you've done an incredible job, truly, and amazing, fantastic. And I just really appreciate your honesty, your openness, you're willing to share a very personal time in your life. And how many kids do you have, Kanai Nahara?
I now have 3, thank God. My first, finally, we had her after our 3rd IVF transfer. We went back right after Yesh Tikva was founded in May. We finally went back to at that point, our 3rd doctor, and did our 2nd retrieval cycle, 3rd transfer. That became our first pregnancy in over 4 years of trying to get pregnant. And she is now 9. And then we subsequently, which I've learned is not so uncommon with an unexplained diagnosis, we subsequently had 2 fertility treatment induced pregnancies. So we now have a 7-year-old.
Does that mean that means naturally?
Well, all pregnancy is
naturally,
but spontaneous.
Spontaneously.
Without
Sorry,
intervention.
I don't know the
No,
lingo.
you know what? It's language in this space is
important.
Both nuanced, triggering to some people and not to others, and it's some people like the word infertility. Other people say fertility struggles. Some people say natural. Some people say spontaneous. Some people say with interventions.
I appreciate your patience with me. So
no,
yes.
you didn't say anything wrong.
Okay.
For me personally, the word natural, all pregnancy is natural. And then all deliveries are natural. You have a natural human coming out of you.
Yes. Spontaneous.
Yes.
I hear it. And if you can leave our viewership, our audience, with your closing remarks or something that you would want people to glean, your final words, what would be that message that you would like to close off with?
I think the most important piece is that you're not alone. I know it's cliche and it's just so true. It's really easy because it's such a private struggle for infertility to become something lonely. And whether you're reaching out to Yesh Tikva, which I hope that you do because we're here for you, or you're reaching out to a friend or family member or another organization, reach out to somebody. Even letting one person in takes it from being secret to remaining, but while still keeping it private. And just being careful that you are getting the support that you need, because it's emotionally and physically draining and taxing, and doing it alone. It's really difficult and not necessary in 2025.
Thank you. We shouldn't give up. We got to keep on having the hope.
Yeah. And hope doesn't mean the promise, that you're going to have a baby. At the end of the day, not everyone does. And that's a choice that different people make of how far they pursue treatment, how long they pursue treatment. And it's in God's hand whether or not the treatment is successful. And obviously we can't control for that. But there is hope that life will be good, whatever the outcome is. And that when you have community holding you, you're able to achieve a life that is beautiful and enjoyable and joyful.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gila.
Thank
I really
you.
appreciate it. You are awesome. You are awesome.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you for
Likewise.
being such an incredible leader in our community and doing what you do. So hope to see you around, hope to have you back, God willing, and we should only have good times together.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much for including me. This was cathartic to share.
Okay.
So it was very lovely. So thank you.
Amen.
Yes.
Thank you. Take care. Well done.